Welcome again to another episode of Shrink Wrap. We have with us again Patty Vance, PhD psychologist, clinical psychologist, who is willing to talk to us today about an important concept in treatment, and that is breath work or breathing. Now, I must tell the audience that a few years ago, somebody asked me a question, and they said to me, "So what have you been doing lately?" And I said, "Breathing." And they laughed. And what I was doing was, in effect, putting into place many of the principles that surround breath work, because I was reading a book by James Nestor called Breath, in which he looked over the history of breath work and its implications for our well-being. So let me get Dr. Vance into this conversation about breath work. And let me ask her specifically, Dr. Vance, what do you think of breath work or breathing in a very organized way for the reduction of anxiety?
I think it's remarkably important. We don't breathe on a regular basis. We don't do so well on this earth. So, breathing is pretty important, but our breathing really does send messages to our brain about how much oxygen we have in our system and what our system needs in terms of oxygen, to the point that if our brain thinks we're getting low on oxygen, it goes into panic mode. And so specifically for panic disorder, breathing is very, very important. And any kind of anxiety and depression and just about anything else you can think of is improved when people are able to pay attention to their breathing and bring breathing under I don't want to say control, because that's not it exactly, but where they're able to slow their breathing rate down and breathe more from their abdomen and less superficially from their shoulders and upper chest. And it makes a difference for many different reasons.
Okay.
Okay.
James Nestor was very clear that there is a technique, and the
Uh-huh.
technique is highly stylized. So let me recount his technique and see if it squares what you're thinking about breath work. So he talks about breathing at a 5.2-second interval in through the nose, a nanosecond or so of holding, and then breathing out through the mouth, and at the same rate of 5.2 seconds. He also talks about doing this for at least 3 minutes, probably not more because you start to hyperventilate, for good relaxation. That short of 3 minutes, it doesn't really set in. What do you think of Nestor's, what I call protocol? What do you think of that?
I don't disagree with it. I don't know that it can't go on a whole lot longer than 3 seconds, and I don't know that it has to be exactly 5.2 seconds.
Right.
The issue is breathing slowly enough that we're engaging our abdomen, and to be breathing deeply enough that, I like to have clients actually sit and put their hands over their lower abdomen and feel their hands move as they're breathing. It seems kind of interesting that an awful lot of really anxious people do a lot of breathing up here. That just, there's where you're going to hyperventilate, is when you're breathing very superficially. But if you're breathing deep and low and slowly, so your abdomen is expanding and contracting, you're also stimulating the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is what triggers the relaxation response. And so it's very important that the breathing be slow and deep so that, and for a long enough period of time to get the vagus nerve involved in this whole process. And people who do this and do it on a regular basis find it to be extremely helpful.
Yeah, one of the things that happens, and tell me if this is within your experience, is that the longer you practice this, the more it becomes a regular part of your breathing,
Yes.
everyday breathing.
Yes. Yes.
That
You
is,
don't have to think about it anymore. You just do it.
yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about the belly breathing as opposed to chest breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Chest breathing is really part of the fight flight response. When you're in flight, you need those short breaths
Yes.
to really quickly oxygenate the body and to speed ahead. The doing that constantly would be, I think, it'd be a disadvantage.
Wears out the system.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've also found that for clients who have panic disorder, when they find themselves going into a panic attack, because again, panic attacks are strongly related to the brain's perception of the oxygen in the bloodstream. If you can, even when there's no rationale for it, okay, the brain is misreading it. So if you go into the slow breathing and after a couple of seconds that's not working, figure out a way to change the air dramatically. Like go stick your head in the freezer and breathe that ice cold air. Or if it's a day like it is today outside, go stick your head outdoors. Or if you drive in your car, roll all of the windows down. Do something so that you kind of shock your brain in realizing that, no, I am getting air. There is air here. I am getting an oxygen. And that can often be enough to shock a person out of the panic attack so it doesn't continue. Breathing is really, really important.
Okay. It sounds like you're also adding another component to breath, and that is during the midst of anxiety, changing one's environment.
Uh-huh.
I know you're talking about getting air, opening windows, and etc.
Right.
But also implicit in that is moving out of the current state
Uh-huh.
into a new state,
Yes.
and that state being a change of environment.
Uh-huh.
And that seems to help.
A change of environment for the purpose of changing one's bodily state.
Yes, yes. And it also, if you change your environment, even though it might seem trivial, in other words, leaving your seat and walking into another room,
Uh-huh.
that breaks a cycle that someone might be in if they're ruminating on a problem
Uh-huh.
or something that's bothering them.
Absolutely. It can also be a distraction.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Okay, so let me go back to breathing.
okay.
So again, I'm not trying to force on you the 5.2 second business.
Well, I understand. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where that came from. I think it's through repeated research that they thought that that was a perfect biorhythm to get into. And of course, most people might think, well, how do you get to 5.2 seconds? I want to inform our listeners that there are apps both on Android and iPhones that allow for breath work, and you could set the app for 5 seconds. Now, one of the things that happens with breath work is that, according to Nestor, is that people come to enjoy the moment that they're in. In other words, it's a moment of clarity of mind.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he said that in his book that the more people do it, the more they want to go back to the exercise because it allows them to have a space of clear mind, no racing thoughts, no jumble of thinking,
Uh-huh.
clear. What do you think of that idea?
I think it's a great idea, and I would tend to agree with that. I mean, for the most anxious folks, That's probably not going to happen the first several times they do this. I mean, it may take some time of practice in doing this on a regular basis, but for most people, I think absolutely it would give a clarity of mind that you can only get when all systems are calm.
The other aspect of breathing has to do with life energy and vitality.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that if people really attended to this, they would feel more revitalized?
I don't know. Maybe. I think it might very well be. People report feeling revitalized after working out. They feel revitalized after doing yoga or Tai Chi. They feel vitalized after taking a walk. So, if you're not able to do those things for whatever reason, I would think that really, spending 5 or 10 minutes doing focused breath work would very likely do that for you.
Because one of the things that Nestor also pointed out was that breath work has the capacity to give people a sense of control.
Uh-huh.
What do you think of that principle?
Yeah, I would agree with that. If no matter how anxious you are, or how overwrought, or feeling overwhelmed, or I mean, it doesn't have to be anxiety, just feeling like life is out of control. If you know that as soon as you get a break, you can go sit in that comfy chair in that other room and in the quiet of your own mind, just calm all of this down by slow, careful breathing, and that you can take that kind of a break and things will be better, that would feel pretty affirming. Give one a sense of being in control of their situation.
One of the things that I picked up in preparation for our conversation was a discussion that compared breath work
Uh-huh.
with meditation.
Uh-huh.
And this research paper said that breath work was far superior to for the purpose of relaxation over meditation. What do you think of that outcome? Have you
I
seen that?
oh, absolutely. And I've seen it for myself too. When you can control the rate at which you breathe, it's really hard to control your thinking. And meditation requires you to be focusing on a thought or a word or a line of reasoning, and you get a little bit relaxed. It's really kind of easy for it to go all over the place. And when you're breathing, you can focus on your breathing and keep it there, which I think probably would, if we had a way of measuring how relaxed somebody was, aside from just what they're saying in our clinical work, I think probably people would vote for breath work over meditation.
All right, let's shift. I think we've talked a little about breathing. And again, let me give a reference here that some listeners or viewers might enjoy, and that is a YouTube video on panic and anxiety. And it's 13 minutes long. And what it is guided meditation, meaning you don't have to come up with a word. You just breathe. You sit in a chair with headphones on
Uh-huh.
and listen to the soothing music. And you're going to get a tour, if you will, of what to do.
Okay.
And that is guided meditation.
Uh-huh.
And I've had clients say that that is much more useful because
Sure.
they're less likely to go off track.
Exactly. Much more doable. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Remember that resource. I'd like it.
yeah, okay. I hope I got the name right. I don't. I mean, I'm drawing on memory there. Again, I think if you just search YouTube for meditative practice
Uh-huh.
for anxiety and panic, 13 minutes, you'll come up with this video.
Okay.
The reason why I bring that up as a resource is because I think that meditation, as you pointed out, is likely to be highly uh, unproductive.
Uh-huh.
Now, the other thing that I want to, before we leave this topic and move on, the other thing I want to point out is that the military has been using breathing, but they use a meditative practice that is, and again, this was research that I gathered from a newsletter from Military One Source
Okay.
about helping U.S. Army snipers with relaxation.
Mm.
And they told them, look, wherever you go, whether you're waiting in a doctor's office or in the waiting room of a superior officer that you're planning to talk with, wherever you are, and you're seated, to go through this regimen of starting at your feet and just while you're breathing nicely and go through how your body's connected to the floor, how your feet are connected to the floor, how the back of your legs are hitting the chair, how your back is hitting the chair, how your arms might be on the armrest of the chair, how your neck might be being held, and then go back down through the body.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about a minute. And the research showed that after practicing this many times with the accompanying breathing, and not even being that conscious, just belly breathing, that's all they said. And then doing this, what I call review of your body and its contact to reality.
To Earth.
Um, they said that people found that their shooting was improved, that they were able to control their breath better, and they were able to do a better job in their practice runs than ever before. What do you think of that? Do you think that?
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So I wanted to point out some of this research that I had discovered, not to lecture you, but to give you a sense that what you're saying about breathing is further confirmed in research and what people are finding out about the success of breathing, that it's not a joke. It's not when you say to people, we're going to work on your breathing, they sometimes chuckle.
Yeah.
Okay? Like the reception I got when people asked me what I was doing
Right.
over the summer or whatever it was. And it's not a joke. It's very essential. In fact, recently I had a little back strain and I went to physical therapy. And I was in the middle of some exercises and I was getting some discomfort. And here again, what was the uh, suggestion of the physical therapist?
Breathe.
Breathe.
Belly breathe.
Start breathing. That will relax your muscles. You won't feel as tense.
Yes.
This exercise won't hurt as much, etc. I want to move on to a topic that is connected to our discussion of spirituality, and that is the place of breathing in the spiritual world, in the sense, the place of breathing and how it plays into one's faith development or connection to a greater power. Do you have any thoughts on this?
One of my very favorite hymns from when I was a little girl sitting in the pews was a hymn where the first line is, "Breathe on me, breath of God." I think for many people of a spiritual nature, the idea of breathing in is a way of breathing in the spirit and being spirit filled. Well, spirit filled has different meanings in different denominations and that kind of thing, but I'm talking the more generic sense of being able to breathe in and appreciate the presence of the divine. And I think when people are able to do a breathing exercise and feel the warmth move throughout their body, feel the different areas of their bodies are getting grounded, at the same time they can be feeling inspirited. You can feel like you're being brought to life, being enlivened by the spirit of the Almighty.
Well, Well, there are plenty of references in the biblical materials that are out there about the breath, right?
Right. Oh,
Um,
yes, throughout.
yes. Now, one of the things that Nesta brings up, back to the breath book, is that prayer, in his view, that the cadence of prayer, that if you look at many prayers, whatever uh, orientation you have, doesn't matter. He actually referenced this as a global process. Whether it's Eastern spirituality, Western, didn't matter to him. That if you look at prayer cycles, you'll see that they work with the same in breath, out breath that you and I have been talking about earlier. Uh, have you had any experience with that?
Well, I'm thinking of many churches, certainly the Christian churches do almost universally, have as a part of their morning service a psalm that is read responsively. You know, the reader or the priest will say the first line of the congregation responds with the second line, and it takes on that flow of in and out and in and out. And so to the extent that a psalm is prayer, and in many cases it is, that would be one example of that. And I think that, you know, depending on where the prayer is coming from, like, is it coming out of scripture or is it something that has been written? I think frequently it has kind of a cadence to it. I mean, if you think about the Lord's Prayer, there's a cadence to that. Even things like the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed that, you know, are said by the more liturgical churches, they also have that kind of a cadence. So yeah, I would think it's highly likely that prayer does often present. If you think of the Catholic Church, you know, the Rosary or some of the liturgical prayers within that tradition are going to be much more breath-like. They're going to be more responsive in that way. So
Yes, yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, so there is a spiritual component to breath. And the very fact of breath being the sort of essence of life, right? I mean, it
maybe
is,
one of the original creation stories was God, you know, taking some mud and putting it together and then breathing in it to bring Adam to life. Okay.
yes, yes,
You know, we can take that literally if we want to, but most people see that more metaphorically as, you know, the breath of God enlivens all of us. That is kind of the point, I think.
yes. And I think there is much to be said about prayer. Again, doesn't matter what tradition, as having the cadence that you and I have been talking about. So again, there are many ways into this. Okay, let's move out of the West and think of the word mantra. That someone might have a mantra and they say it, whatever it is,
Never,
whatever,
sure.
a word, a line. Okay, I encountered a small book on prayer and anxiety, and the author recommended a very simple mantra for people in moments of distress who wanted to enter into a spiritual component of helping with that distress.
Okay.
And her prayer went something like this, sort of a reshaping of the 23rd Psalm. Okay. And it went something like this: in breath, the Lord is my shepherd.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. A
I have heard.
pause.
So, yes.
That is all I need.
Uh,
Out breath.
right.
That is all that I will ever need, however you want to expound on that last phrase. And her argument was that that very simple line, modified 23rd Psalm, first
Right.
couple of lines, can be highly successful. Now, if you look at the cadence of that, the Lord is my shepherd, that's about 3 to 5 seconds long, depending on how long it's taking you to voice it in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And you might add other words on the out breath. He is all I need, or this is all that I require or
Have
need.
all that I need. Yes.
Right. And you're getting close to the 3 to 5 second interval.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could see that there people have been looking at this in the spiritual domain and the clinical science domain,
Mm-hmm.
and they're coming up with the same outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Is that this works.
Yes.
This will help you in times of distress.
Yes.
Now, that particular mantra or expression or prayer
Mm-hmm.
is highly powerful, highly, highly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I might add, and this is way off topic, but it comes to mind, that in the 23rd Psalm, the correct Hebrew translation is that you are not guided through the valley of the shadow of death. Okay, whatever.
Right.
That in the Hebrew translation, according to Harold Kushner, wrote a whole book on this. It's really that going out at night
It's
in
dangerous.
the was dangerous in those days, and Israel is made up of little hills and valleys,
Mm-hmm.
and the psalm really was not the valley of the shadow of death or whatever. It had more to do with the prospect of bandits
Mm-hmm.
in the evening as you traveled through the valley.
Yes.
And anyway, that's an aside. But the point I'm making is that the breath work seems to be very much tied with spirituality as well. So however you want to approach it, and this is why this channel exists,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be through the clinical science and all
Mm-hmm.
the research that I cited to you in preparation, or whether it be through one spiritual activity,
Mm-hmm.
there is an intersect.
Right.
I would call it more of it's more embedded. These things are embedded in one another, both historically and currently, as we learn more about the value of breath work.
Right.
We're coming to the end of our time. Do you want to add anything as we wrap up about breath work and in general and spirituality and breath work in particular?
I think just that people should, as much as they're able to, practice belly breathing. And folks, many people are really, really busy, and many people are really, really stressed out. And give yourself some time. Take 10 minutes out of your day, a couple of times a day, to just sit and breathe. And whether you want to do it by counting to 5 seconds and a pause and counting out to 5 seconds before a pause, or if you want to do it by saying, "The Lord is my shepherd," for a pause, and then I shall have no wants for the downs, whatever. These, whether you're doing it as a form of prayer or you're doing it as a form of science, it doesn't matter. It's good, it's helpful, and you'll feel better.
Yeah. I might want to add, Nestor makes a big point about the 3 minutes, and I want to underscore that before we leave. You can't really do this for 30 seconds and get the true effect.
Right. You need to have at least 2 minutes.
Well, all I know is that I tried it for myself
Uh-huh.
because I didn't want to recommend anything to my clients that I hadn't tried.
Uh-huh.
And I had an online presentation to give, and for whatever reason, I was somewhat anxious about it. Not atypical, right, in the world.
Right.
People don't like public speaking. All right, so I decided to do the breath work, and I am telling you that when I hit, now maybe because I knew this, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy or something, but when I hit the 3 minute mark, I felt a overwhelming relaxation.
Uh-huh. Good. Good.
And I mean, such that all of that jittery stuff had subsided. So again, just the 3 minutes, I want to underscore that. Would you agree?
I would.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's wrap up on here. Thank you so much for your attendance once again.
Once again.
Once again, I'll have you back again because you're so willing to share your expertise.
Okay.
And I'll see you next time, and we'll continue to explore clinical processes and its intersect with spiritual
Okay.
worlds. All right. Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Bye.
It's always a lot of fun.
Right.